Tiger Den podcast. Danielle Scarzello, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Super excited to be here.
Thank you.
This is the coolest setup. Love it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
It's been quite the enjoyable experience. We've been talking off camera about entrepreneurship, and when I had this idea like 4 months ago or so, it was just like, let's just dive in and see where it takes us. I feel like that's an entrepreneur's spirit.
1000%. Even right now, we're going headphones off. Right?
Yes.
We're adapting.
You
in real
see me with
time.
headphones off. My headphones aren't working. Tech issues. We'll figure it out.
It
but
happens.
we're in here.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
We met through a mutual friend, Neil Larimore.
Yes. At an amazing party.
Yes.
And then we just ended up talking work.
Yes.
Which, who does that? Entrepreneurs. That's who. We had a great conversation, and it stuck with me. So when you asked me to be on the brainer.
Yeah. Shout out to Neil.
Big shout out.
Neil is
the host with the most.
He's always the host with the most, but Neil has this impeccable quality where he is an amazing connector, and he's like a centerpiece in his neighborhood. And I love Neil. We've been friends for several years, and he's a good friend of mine. So yeah.
Very welcoming too.
Yeah. You live over by Neil. Well, I'm not going to expose your location.
Yes.
But, you live in a very I'd say connected neighborhood in Peoria.
Adjacent for sure.
You're not from Peoria originally, though. Talk about that.
I moved here 3 years ago from northern Colorado. I lived in Loveland, the sweetheart city. So sort of their big thing that they're known for is very timely. You can send your mail in. It gets postmarked from Sweetheart City. So there's a lot of Valentine flows that go through there right now.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, say that again. Say that again.
Yeah. So if you send a piece of mail to Loveland to get postmarked, it will be postmarked from the Sweetheart City.
Interesting.
So they have this whole program, but they also have like hearts that they put up all around the city that you can have messages inscribed on. It's the city of love.
It's like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Loveland. Yeah. Okay. So you came to Peoria in what year?
December 29th, 2021, to be very specific.
Yes. You remember the day and the time.
I do, because it was a very eventful move. My husband and I drove out here 14 hours. We get here and our mover had a heart issue. So our moving van was parked at OSF. That was our first initial, welcome to Peoria. So everything was fine. That's the good news. He's perfectly safe and healthy. But a bit of a bumpy start when we first got here.
No kidding.
Yeah.
First impressions of Peoria, Illinois, coming from Loveland, Colorado.
It's the bones are here. And when I say that, there's a lot of great things about Peoria, but there's also a lot of development to still be done. It's apparent to me as a transplant, and I say this so respectfully. Typically, when you're having this conversation with someone from Peoria, the hackles are raised, the defenses go up. But I do find that a lot of Peorians are also very critical of this city too. So it's interesting from a transplant perspective that when I do offer criticism, sometimes it's not always welcomed.
Sure. It's like kind of like having the brother that you don't necessarily get along with.
But he's your brother.
He's
you
your brother.
Defend
it's
him.
like, no, this is my brother, and I'll beat you up for it.
That's right. That's right. I do have a younger brother. That's so relatable. Shout out, Jesse.
Yeah. So I agree with you. The Peoria, I feel like we had a fall from grace, right? And there was a saying, you've probably heard it, everything plays in Peoria. The pictures of the city, people post them online sometimes. It was like this bustling city, and if you can make it in Peoria, you can make it anywhere. And then when Caterpillar came and went, there was like the air came out of the balloon, and Peoria people had to fend for their own in a lot of ways. And not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that happened. So, but the general sentiment when Caterpillar pulled out of the development was that this is a really negative thing for the city, that how are we going to make it on our own? And as opposed to kind of coming together, I feel like a lot of places just scattered.
Yeah. And having that context again as a transplant is super interesting because, again, you don't want to say it's a good or a bad thing, but I'm very much a person that likes to make lemonade out of all the lemons given to me.
Yeah.
So I think when you are faced with that opportunity, you should rise up and try to create something good from an absence of something else.
Yes.
So Caterpillar leaving, even though they still have a presence here, and I think they will always have a presence, there's a large workforce here of Caterpillar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everyone left, but you do have an opportunity to create more companies, more of a thriving, diverse economy.
Yes.
And that's what we should be leaning into.
So let's dive into that. You work for gener8tor.
Yes, I do.
I would say that not many people citywide know about your guys' mission and know about what you guys do. I'm in the entrepreneur community, and I found out about you guys because I have a friend who came into the program, and beautiful building downtown.
Yes.
Like, gorgeous.
So it's phenomenal. If you have not been in Distillery Labs yet, you have to go in and check it out. Firstly, because there's Cafe Santa Rosa, right? You get some coffee. The lobby is open for everyone. But in order to be a part of Distillery Labs, you can get memberships, and they offer different packages. But it's a co-working space. They also have a maker space with different tools and equipment that you can use. There's a culinary kitchen. There's a podcast studio. There is a photography and videography room inside. There's plenty of what we call hot desk space. So let's say it's really hard to work from home. I can relate. Sometimes working remotely gets a little lonely. But maybe you don't want to pay for rent for a full-on office. You're in that in-between phase, which is where a lot of startups are.
Yeah.
Grab a membership and get a hot desk space so you can pop in and out of a secluded, quiet space, but then go to the lobby and meet some people.
And networking is where it's at.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah.
I feel like networking is one of those things where it's talked about how you can have success through networking, but the methods of networking, it's kind of like just go talk to people.
Yes.
And it's like if you're not an extrovert that enjoys that, it's very nerve-wracking to just go strike up a conversation and say, what do you do?
Which is funny that you say that. I very much describe myself as an introverted extrovert. Socially, I find it a little more challenging, but when I have a mission, I can be the biggest extrovert ever. So if I have a startup founder coming to me and they need to be connected with someone who, is an expert in whatever industry they're in, I'm going to find that person, like a bloodhound. Like my nose is to the ground. I'm focused. I'm ready. So for me, it's a great excuse to meet a lot of people in a lot of varied industries. And just the connections that you make that way are so fun.
Yes.
You get to meet a breadth of people of different industries and different interests and skill sets. And sometimes you're just asking yourself, like, is this a legit industry that you're in? I didn't even know this existed. And then you find out, oh yeah, there's a space for that.
I think that a lot about a lot of jobs. Now, forgive me for all you people that work on computers all day, but we build like real tangible things that can be seen before and afters, and like good roof, bad roof to good roof, and solar panels, and like there's real tangible things you can touch. For a lot of jobs out there, I feel like there's a lot of job industries we don't even know about that people work on, and jobs they accomplish that I'm like, I didn't even know that existed, and is that real?
Yes. Here's a great example. Without naming the company, they're not based here regionally, but I was able to jump into something called a mentor swarm through gener8tor. And mentor swarm is 15 to 20 minutes with an entrepreneur. Rapid fire discussion where you're thinking, who can I connect them to? How can I help them? What's the takeaway? Sometimes it's even just understanding or attempting to understand, like, what is the problem that they're actually solving? Sometimes the language of how they're pitching business just isn't there yet, right? That's why this program is great. But for this particular company, they were creating plasma space blasters. Did you know that was a thing?
I don't even know what plasma and space would mean.
Apparently it's a big problem. There's all sorts of plasma in space, and it's going to start making clouds.
In space?
Correct.
Okay.
And they have the solution for that.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So that's just like a typical day in the life, right?
I had an experience this last week where Roofer is our sponsor, our key sponsor for this. And I talked to my counterpart at Roofer, come up with content ideas to push their product. And I was like, I came up with this idea in my head. And then I described the idea on the phone. And as I was describing it, I was like, this actually doesn't make sense. I was like, this it kind of hits the point, but it doesn't. And I think for entrepreneurs, I've had many conversations like that, that as they're describing this idea, I think about, okay, who's your target customer? How much would they pay for this? And can you stay financially viable through the first year?
All great questions.
And most of the time, it's like when you get to the end of the conversation, you hate to tell somebody that they got to take the horse behind the barn, but it's like this idea just doesn't work.
Or sometimes, right? It's maybe you don't have to take the horse behind the barn, but let's figure out how to make this horse pretty
Let's
and
paint the horse different color.
Yeah, maybe it's a unicorn. We just haven't found it yet.
Yes, but for entrepreneurs that think about things all the time, it's critical you get feedback from people who would actually purchase the product.
Yes, we call that customer discovery. That's a huge part of what we do with gener8tor. And maybe let's circle back. I kind of went on a Distillery Labs building tangent. How gener8tor works is in tandem with Distillery Labs.
So explain the difference for the listeners. So Distillery Labs is the location, the business.
The location, the business, think the roof, quite literally, of entrepreneurial efforts and ecosystem building for Peoria. And gener8tor is one of those things housed under that roof.
Okay.
So we provide programming that is VC backable, meaning we're looking at all companies and startups through a venture lens. Is this something an investor could get behind?
So your job, if you find a good idea, is to go, you don't pitch it to the investors though. You're essentially lining up investors and then the entrepreneur would pitch that to the people.
Yeah, so that's G-Beta, and that's a 7-week program.
Okay.
And so for 6 weeks of that 7 weeks, we are diving into mentorship. We are doing one-on-one meetings. We're working on something called KPIs, key performance indicators. How do you know that you're actually growing and moving the needle, right? So that's a big focus. And then we have something called a lunch and learn, which is where we cover a specific business topic each week. And so when these 5 companies that I will select this spring go through beta, when they get to week 7, that's called Investor Swarm Week.
Got it.
So they are pitching a minimum of 25 investors for practice. But what we do say is there's deal flow potential within that. So from the investor standpoint, I tell them, I really just want your feedback. I want you to be helpful when you're talking to these startups. However, if you see a good deal and you want in at this earliest stage, this is a great place to have that introduction. You're getting to see them at their earliest pitch. You are getting to see them work and develop, put together something, and actually have the courage to go out and present it for the first time.
So talk about that. Let's go back a step. What's a company you've seen through the program that has succeeded since you've been here, that you've seen like grow from infancy to first pitch to investable?
There's a lot of great examples. I'm going to take one of my newest companies that I've worked with. They are called ShotHawk. Essentially, they started as a team from Bradley University. A bunch of mechanical engineers, a few business students. They all teamed up to work on something for Bradley University called the Big Idea competition. And then there's a social impact that they do as well. And so they had come up with this idea for a rail and drone specific product. They could explain it so much better. I'm going to try not to butcher it. But essentially, think a person walks into a school and they have a gun. This drone would spot the shooter, a potential shooter, I should say, and activate. And it would distract the shooter so that law enforcement has time to get there.
Wow.
So think first response for first responders.
Wow.
When we have a fire in a building, we have fire alarms and we have smoke detectors. We don't have anything for active shooters. And sadly, that's something that government is not going to fix anytime soon. Again, hot button subject, so going to back away from it. But we do need to have something in place that's going to keep kids and teachers safe in schools, right? So that was their solution. They built a prototype through the program. They also went through something called iCore, which is all customer discovery focused. Now they have raised over $100,000 through grants through the city of Peoria, and then also the Illinois Science and Technology Coalition. And so they're able to develop and hopefully be able to put out 30 units that will be machine learning in real time. So nothing is going to be deployed as a deterrent yet, but they need the machine learning to prove the concept first.
And this was an idea born in Peoria.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that can change lives. Very, very.
Yes. So you're working with entrepreneurs from all different walks of life, all different business platforms. Is there a common thread that you see? Is it technology? What is the main kind of through line for the businesses that approach these programs the most?
Typically, a lot of technology,
Tech.
right? That's pretty straightforward. What will be interesting is we're sort of exploring this concept that SaaS, software as a service style companies, may be reaching the end of their lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
And,
with AI.
And AI is going to swoop in.
Yeah.
I'm not typically what I would describe as an early adapter myself. So I'm always a little more hesitant. I keep my ear to the ground, but I'm not the first to buy in. I think AI still has a lot of things that we need to work out. There's a lot of issues there, but I'm very interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm the same way with AI specifically. I know that there's been this sentiment over the past year. I've heard this quote saying like, if you're not using AI in your business, you're already behind. And I agree and I disagree to some extent, right? You can search things faster, you can create things faster. However, like this is such a new technology that has so many use cases that I'm kind of like, cool, AI is here. What specifically do I use it for in my business? And can it take off all of these things, some of these things? Like, what is the use case? And I know that in 10 years, this will be commonplace, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of like when email and Google came out. But yeah, we'll see, I suppose, is the answer.
I think it's too soon to say, but how fast AI has entered the chat and now officially taken over, it will be a thing. Like it already is a thing, right? It's just how we use it. What sort of rules do we want to put around it and boundaries? The safety and security of it. I think that's a top pressing issue.
Yes.
And that's something that will definitely make you stand out in the pack. But yeah, there's a lot of technology based companies. We also have some what we call CPG or consumer product good style companies through. But typically like those are the right? Service providers, that's not typically something we lean towards unless it's replicable and easy to scale.
Yes. So you're looking for scalable companies that can be worth a lot of money. You're looking for unicorns.
I'm looking for a return on investment. Yeah, for sure.
So you guys, with the grants you file and with the ownership of the company, do you guys take a chunk of the company or a piece of the company and say this is part of us of the gener8tor program now? So
what's really great about the G-Beta program is we don't. This is a very founder-friendly program. This is 7 weeks of high-intensity, what we call concierge coaching. You get to work with me twice a week for an hour each. You get the mentor swarms, you get networking, you get lunch and learns. You get introductions to a lot of people that are really hard to get introductions to, quite frankly. Right. And so the best part of it, though, is that the founders that are chosen for this, there's no cost to them. There's also no investment. But week 7 could change that for you, right? So you get 25 investors you're meeting with. Maybe one of those bites. So it's potential. Wow. Sounds like there's 3 companies involved or 3 organizations, maybe more. You said gener8tor, Scarzello Labs, and then the third one you said was Oh, that was the Illinois Science and Coalition. Okay. I mixed it up. ISTC, Illinois Science and Technology Coalition. Okay. And are they involved in the program for providing grants? Is that what their main thing is? So, oh boy, there's a lot to cover here. Distillery Labs is the roof, right? Yes. gener8tor is under that roof. There's also the GPEDC, which is our local economic development council. There is the chamber. There is SCORE, which is a mentorship group. There is the WBDC, which just launched a chapter here in Peoria, and that's the Women's Business Development Center. So all of that is housed inside of Distillery Labs.
Got it.
ISTC is a totally separate statewide program that provides grants. So the reason I brought them into the picture is for a company like ShotHawk, a startup with not a lot of funding at this point, a lot of team members generating no revenue. They don't have a product that can do that yet because there's so much testing that has to go into it.
Yes.
This is a product that if it deploys, pepper gel onto an innocent student, that's going to have a lot of headlines in a not so great way.
Makes sense.
So you have to do the machine learning component first.
Safety is important there.
Safety is so important. And thankfully, they have a great team. They have, I think they're pushing 99% accuracy so far, which is phenomenal. But it still has to go through a lot of tests and trials. So they have to get funding through things like statewide grants or city grants. The city of Peoria was one of those grants as well. So kudos to the city for supporting startups.
Speak to the entrepreneurs that potentially are listening to this. What's a common thread you see with entrepreneurs that succeed in these programs? What's like a key indicator that you're working with somebody who's serious and can actually get funding and can have a successful business?
Grit. Number one, you have to hear no over and over and over. And you have to get so comfortable hearing no. It's going to be the number one word that you hear as a startup founder. No, we're not interested. No, you're not ready. No, you don't deserve funding yet. No, I don't think I should make that introduction for you. You're not there. No, this isn't possible, right? ShotHawk, kudos. They went through Mentor Swarm and they got some very volatile feedback. Feedback of people that were rightly concerned with the product. That's crazy that you would even think of implementing something like that in a school. And then on the flip side, you have people going, it's crazy. We don't have legislation around this. So we should absolutely get behind what they're building.
Sure.
So you've got two sides of the aisle here. So as a founder, you need grit. You need determination to keep going on days when it's just really hard, right? So something I work with a lot of founders on is celebrate the wins, but also picking them back up when they're down. I don't know how many emails or calls I've gotten from people like, I should just give up. I should just fold in the towel. And you're thinking, wait a second, last week you were on top of the world. You had just made a breakthrough. What's happening? Let's talk. So there's a lot of emotions that go into this. And so you have to be good at reading people and trying to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. There's a meme out there of like the entrepreneurial journey is, people see like an ascension, right? It's like walking up a hill like this and you're treading uphill. The entrepreneurial journey is much more like this. It's like, and then there's like a crevasse in the middle and there's like, like it's a rock climb up, just go straight up and then you go straight back down. So
big time.
It's so interesting how you can have such good days and such bad days so closely aligned, where in a corporate job where you're mostly working on projects, which I have experience in, it's much less emotional because you're fighting, as an entrepreneur, you're fighting for your baby. And that's generally how it feels. I was talking to an entrepreneur this last week and it's like, you're fighting for your baby to survive. And people will tell you your baby's ugly. So
Constantly. And you have to say, deep down, I know that my baby is really cute. Deep down. Yeah.
But there's also some feedback that people can give you that's really spot on and articulate. And you have to be like, that's true. And I'm going to change something because of that feedback.
Totally.
So you have to be open, but also firm. I've heard that feedback from other very successful entrepreneurs. You have to grit and you have to be firm, but also fair to feedback.
Yeah.
That it's like, yeah, that's totally fair. And I can change that.
Yeah, so I call that coachability.
That's right.
Very quickly, I can determine with a conversation with a founder, oh, this person, I don't think they're going to get what they want out of G beta because already they're pushing back on a light suggestion I'm giving them. You know, oh, have you done any customer discovery around that? If the answer is something to the effect of, well, I know a lot of people and I know they're going to like it, that's a big red flag. That doesn't prove that you've done it. It just means you have a wide circle. And maybe you have a wide circle of people that just tell you yes because you're really hard to tell no.
Or they love you and they want you to succeed, so they don't give you hard feedback.
Right. Yeah. Right? Don't go to your family and friends for feedback.
Yes.
That's the wrong audience.
It is.
Go to the customer.
That's right.
They're going to give you the most honest feedback, and that's the gift. Honesty.
Yeah. And how much money would you pay for that?
Yeah.
Right?
If nothing, then why?
Then yeah.
Yeah, you don't see the value.
Yeah. So were you recruited from your city in Loveland, Colorado to Peoria for this program?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I sort of stumbled here.
Okay.
I was introduced to Peoria, and my husband and I were just in a right place, right time to pick up and leave. And so we did rather quickly. I was working remote for another company. I was doing marketing for a company that did construction, roofing and painting. So that's
roofing
initially
and painting. That's a combo.
Yes.
Very hard trade and a very soft trade in terms of like, man, I used to work in bathroom remodel, and it's an interior, right? It's your bathroom. And you spend a lot of time in the bathroom every day. So like when you look at the walls and it's not perfect, there's a lot of complaining there.
Yes.
And painting is very much the same way. There can be nicks and I have a couple of friends who are painters, and it can be a lot of feedback a lot of the time. Or roofing, you really don't look at roof until it leaks.
Yeah. You just want it done.
Right? Just get it done. Oh.
Yeah. So I was doing marketing for that company, and we started as a painting company. And then in 2020, we switched over to adding roofing as a product line. And 2020 was a pivotal year for a lot of people. That was a very pivotal year for me of recognizing that I didn't like marketing at all. I wanted
That's a big realization in the marketing field.
Big time. It's and I love it. I love analyzing marketing. I don't love creating content. That is not my world.
You're a critic. Yeah. You're like a movie critic.
Yes. Yes. I would say so.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I've heard that movie critics are actually like failed writers, that they can't create stories. And this is not about you.
Fair.
But I've heard that movie critics like are people who can't create movie stories, but they can analyze the films very well. And those are two different, very different skill sets.
Fair.
And by the way, I create content almost every day, and it can be a drudge. It's a slow drudge. And when you have to do it, sometimes the ideas you produce, you don't think they're going to do well, and they do well. Sometimes the ideas you assess are going to do well, they flop.
Definitely.
And it's human nature's odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm much more of an observer than I am putting my own content into the world.
What's an idea? Yeah. So you've been in the marketing field for a long time. Then what's kind of something you can give to an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to market their idea? What's something that they could do a good job with?
Always stick with simplicity. It has to be quick. It has to be catchy. It has to be, in the words of Don Draper, simple but significant. Say more by saying less, always. I think the brands that stick out are the ones that don't always even have words or phrases to them, right? So
symbols.
When we see the Nike swoosh, intrinsically, we already know, just do it. We don't even have to see the words.
That's right.
It's just there. That's what's so good about it.
I think about when I'm writing emails, because I can tend to be long-winded at times. I learned back in my early 20s, my first job, I worked with a guy who now works for Sports Illustrated, very talented writer. And in the job that I worked, it's kind of like G Beta in a sense. We had a lot of people come in and basically coach us throughout a 3-month period as to how to become a better professional. But his one-day seminar was on writing. And he said, if you get to the point faster by saying less words, get to the point.
Yeah.
Stop using so many words to describe something when you don't have to.
1,000%. That is a big focus of the G Beta program too, is the pitch. that I think that's what a lot of founders, they love about this program, right? That's the sexy spin here. You get to walk away with a succinct pitch that we give you the tools, we give you the format, and we just edit the heck out of it. I start,
a lot of red marker.
Oh, so much red marker. And I time my founders. So I say it's a 5-minute storytelling tool is the pitch deck. And everyone goes over 5 minutes the first time. I've seen pitches that were 10, 15 minutes long. Who wants to sit through that? No one. No one wants to sit through that. Much less an investor, which is why we say 5 minutes or less.
Time is critical.
Time is everything. And so if you can get your business pitched to me in, let's say 3 minutes, you just gained 2 extra minutes of Q&A time with an investor. That's more valuable.
Yes.
That's way more valuable.
I talk about this to our staff here with communicating ideas. And when I go to conferences, I've spoken on a couple stages, which has been, I personally love speaking on stages in front of people, but it's not necessarily even the information you speak about. It's how you deliver it.
Yeah.
And you can tend to get inside your own head with explaining stories for too long. You can over exemplify. And in my speeches, I never write long form paragraphs of what I'm saying. So like some people that I've seen speak will have like a headliner on the presentation, will have like several bullet points. What's the point of you listening to that person if you can just read the words on the presentation? So oftentimes I will just use pictures.
Yes.
To remind my brain to speak about a certain topic.
Yes.
So they're looking at a picture and then I'm describing it to them.
That's literally one of the tips I give my founders.
Hey, I'm on the right page. Yeah.
Give yourself a visual cue of what you want to talk about.
And then it's extemporaneous. And you don't have to be so robotic. You can be emphatic on certain points. You can reserve yourself. So it's just it's a cue in your brain to say a certain, so you line out essentially if you're thinking of a paragraph and then bullet points, you're lining that out in pictures as opposed to words. Because if you put words on a presentation, guess what the people will do? They will tune you out and they will read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
The other thing too is the pitch is meant to be entertaining.
Yes.
Deep down, whether you, I find this a lot with founders that are more engineer brained. They love to tell you how something works. They can't wait to give you the deep dive of all the mechanics and how one thing functions with another. And I always say, lovingly, I don't care how it works. If I'm the end user, what is it doing for me?
Yeah.
What's the problem this thing solves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why do I care about this? Because I'm not an engineer and I don't care about the mechanics.
And you can get to that later.
Exactly.
When the engineers all get together in the room.
But don't bore me out of the gate.
That's it.
Give me something interesting to listen to first.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think in business, how many companies exist, massive companies exist that are not great with their actual product, but have such a great marketing and sales pitch that we buy them constantly. Sure. I can think of, I'm not going to shout out Comcast, but I will. Comcast, the experience is not very great. They're great at marketing and they've built the infrastructure. Man, the experience is bad and they're probably working on that.
Yeah,
my point
customer
is,
service could use some work.
Can use some, but the point is that a sales presentation, how you communicate the idea is almost better than the idea itself.
Yes.
In the beginning, it's more important.
Yes.
To capture the emotion of people.
Big time.
To say, why should I care about this?
I heard this from a founder and I have just copied it and used it every single time. It came from the team Switchbox. Which is building a kiosk for electric vehicle charging stations to give you the amenities that a gas station might, right? So you need something to clean your windshield.
Oh, that's so true.
You don't have that in an electric vehicle charging station. So that's what they're looking to do, is give you things to do to be productive in your downtime while you're charging.
I would buy that immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're looking for another site for them to test it
Seriously,
out.
So I have an electric car and I charge, and so most often they'll build charging stations in gas stations or near gas stations or near, like there's one in Peoria over by Hy-Vee.
Yep.
But it's a decent walk to get to that place. And if it's super cold out,
Oh, it's miserable.
if I had a vending machine that I could just press a button and get something, I would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll make that introduction.
Yeah, seriously. That's a good idea.
Oh, but I got sidetracked.
Sure.
This is what happens with me with conversations.
Hey, this is good. This is good information.
The tip that they gave me that I love, think of your solution as the painkiller and not the vitamin. We know vitamins are good for us. We need them. But we don't really notice day in and day out if we don't have them, right? Like you can still function. But if you're in pain and you get that painkiller, immediate relief.
Yes.
So that's what we want to feel when we get to you as a solution, as a startup.
When you have like a zit on your face, especially as like a younger person,
The worst.
and you go to school, it's all you think about.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope this person is not looking at it.
It's like everyone is, right?
Everyone's looking. When in reality, no one's really like staring at it. But
they're thinking about their own zit.
that's it. But if you had an instant painkiller solution to that thing, you'd buy it, and it wouldn't matter the cost. It's like, I need this product. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Why do people care about your product?
Yeah. Make them care about your
Make them
product.
care. Yes. It sounds odd to even talk about that because we're not talking about the product itself. We're talking about the delivery of it. But man, oh man, I can tell, and I understood this kind of subconsciously through, I studied brands and I studied marketing for a long time. And so the Tiger truck and the Solar Panther vehicle, they evoke some kind of emotion that when you drive past and you go to a stoplight, somebody stares at it and they'll be like, what is this thing? I have to know. When most construction companies think, I'm just going to be the best at construction. But why do people care? If you have the best construction company in the world, but nobody knows about it, are you the best?
Yeah. If a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound?
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
So if we don't even know that you exist, again, why do we care?
Yes. And oftentimes in entrepreneurs' brains, I can identify with this, we get trapped in this insular mindset of this is just the best idea.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the best. And people will catch on once they know about it. But if you can't convince people to care, it doesn't matter.
Correct. And if they can't catch on, there's something lacking in the messaging entirely, right? So I encourage founders when they're developing the pitch or thinking about their branding, if it's not immediately hooking you, why?
Yeah.
Keep asking yourself why. We say why times 7. Just ask yourself why 7 times, right? It's very simple, but it's an effective exercise that gets you to the root of what really is the problem.
That's so good.
So it's just doing a deep dive and being super analytical.
So let's go to the other side. You've worked with a bunch of businesses. You've talked about things that, grit and for the marketing, the message. What are some don'ts? Just don't do this.
Oh, I love this. Don't assume you know everything. You don't. And feigning that you do will make people instantly distrust you and dislike you. No one likes a know-it-all.
So give an example. As you're talking to an entrepreneur, there are keys you can pick up on. And
yeah, they're so well connected. They know everyone in the industry. They know the big players, right? They go to first name basis a lot. Like,
oh, Elon.
Totally. Yeah. We're just chatting out back.
Yeah.
But for me, there's a reason that they're seeking out the program if we're talking about G Beta. So I'm trying to pull out of them, what about this program are you interested in if you know everything? If you know everyone?
Why are you here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What can I offer you that you don't already have?
Sure.
Then it comes out, right? Deep down, they really don't know everyone. They don't know everything.
You think it's maybe
building
up a front to make it seem like they know more because they want to seem important or
absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not a program if you are allergic to being vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable in this program. It's the best way to get help. And so I think another big don't for me in analyzing a founder is someone who cares so much about their baby, their product, that they can't fathom any kind of change. It's perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
You just don't see it the way I do. Like, well, maybe ask 50 other people. And if we're all saying the same thing,
listen.
Yeah.
My big topic in the roofing industry, what I'm kind of known for, is branding. So when I first came up with Roof Tiger in 2020, it was kind of a new idea that approached the market in a kind of fun and goofy way. Not goofy, but a fun and really eye-catching way to make people care and make people see it. But in the roofing industry, I was laughed at in the beginning.
Yeah. Not anymore.
When I drove the trucks around Peoria, literally I would see contractors laughing at my trucks. They would look and laugh, and like, you know, it was just that thing. And I would wave to them and kind of just be the annoying small brother. But when I went to a conference in 2022 or 3, I can't remember which one it was, I talked to a contractor who had a logo that looked like this. It was a triangle, and it was American flag. So it was a red roof with blue lines as the logo. And I was like, dude, your logo stinks. I spoke on stage. He comes up to me. He's like, my logo is great and my company's great. And I was like, okay, cool. What are your sales?
I feel like you just described 80% of roofing logos, by the way.
Exactly.
It's a peak.
No shout.
And there's a flag.
There is. But we have to understand why that matters.
Yeah.
And if you blend in with everybody else, your prices will be the exact same as everybody else. They won't take you seriously. They won't even know to call you because they won't remember you. So I was describing these things to this guy, and he was like challenging me on every point. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to compare balance sheets or like sales. It's irrelevant. How many roofs and how many people are you impacting in your city? And we got really to the brass tacks, and he's like, well, not very great. And I was like, that's because they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You might think in your head that because you live in this city and you started a company that people just automatically, they don't care.
Yeah.
How do you make them care? So he rebranded to a company that was kind of like a bee. He renamed his company Honeybee Roofing. Bright pink and yellow badging. He rewrapped his truck. I met him the next year. And I was like, what's the response? He's like, dude, people see me.
Yeah.
And they can actually call me. And my sales are blowing up and people actually know who I am. My Google research. I'm like, yes, this is the way. So you have to be willing to take criticism from people who don't understand your vision.
Yes.
But also understand that there's real feedback there that, you know,
absolutely,
you're not as big as what you think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's something important to differentiate too when we're talking criticism.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people, and earlier in the conversation when you said, oh, you're a critic, I was like, ooh. Because there are people that are truly just critics.
Yes.
They love to just be negative.
Say that again. Goodness.
Oh my God. There are people that just exist to shit talk and just be awful and negative and tell you that they're better.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want a real confidence boost, just get on social media, says everyone, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have critical feedback, not from critics, particularly people that don't have anything positive to add to the conversation.
Man.
And not that you should surround yourself with just people that are cheerleaders, right?
Yes.
Like that's kind of the opposite. You have to find that nice middle ground of people that are supportive, can offer you good critical feedback, but also you don't leave with just criticism.
Yeah.
You leave with a hug, right?
Yeah.
So I like the sandwich method.
Sandwich, yeah.
You know, let's start with something positive. Let's give you what to work on, but let's end with a highlight.
Yes.
So that way you don't leave defeated.
We need that.
Yeah.
Man, we need that. And entrepreneurial journeys are so hard. And going back to the first point of this conversation, you go up and down and up and down, and there's cycles of business, right? So some businesses like mine, we freeze up in the wintertime.
Yep.
So I started our business, Danielle, in August of 2020. If I was smart, I probably would have started in March. Yeah. So I literally had 2 months of sales were like having some momentum, and then everything froze. And I'm like, oh no. But I had this mentality. It was like now or never. I have to do this right now or else it's not going to happen ever again. So there's a balance there where you have to have the grit that this is going to work. And taking feedback is part of that process. Some of the feedback I got about myself in the beginning was like, do you know your numbers? Do you know finances? And the answer was no, I don't. I know finances enough to be dangerous, but my friend who is now our CFO, He worked at ATS, and he was a data analyst, and he did a lot of numbers, and he was like asking me these questions. And I'm like, why does this stuff matter? We're going to make $1 billion. So, yeah. But the more he taught me about this stuff, I'm like, I have a lot to learn here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so important for entrepreneurs to know their numbers and to know their KPIs. So you've got to be multifaceted in taking feedback from many different directions and willing to learn about those things enough to be dangerous.
But you did something smart. You reached out to someone who did know their stuff about numbers, right? You consulted, you got help, you hired that person, and you're stronger for it because even though, yes, you know enough to be dangerous, right? And that's good, but you also have to surround yourself with people that just really know their stuff.
Yes.
And be open and acknowledge that maybe I'm not the expert in this one thing, but I have an expert in this one thing.
I've got a network.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why networking is so important.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So the don'ts of entrepreneurism, being able to take feedback, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but be willing to take feedback. What's something else that you can kind of think of that you would give advice to entrepreneurs that are looking to join the G-Beta program or the gener8tor program? Like, what's something you can speak to?
For another don't rely on this program for immediate success. That's not what it's there for. It's there to help you, but you have to be the person that does the work. So use this program as an accountability partner. And then when you leave the program, you still have me. I'm still supportive, right? And I'm still supporting all 29 companies that have gone through our cohorts, plus the 24 that went through our G Alpha last fall. So that's a totally separate program. But, you know, when you're talking those numbers, that's over 50 companies I alone am still offering support to just in this region. That comes with a lot of responsibility. And spoiler, that comes with needing a lot of time management practices too. So it's, I guess, don't use this program to be the end all be all if you're successful. It's not. But it will give you the tools to be successful if you use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, a lot to unpack there. Let's go to downtown Peoria, being in the heart of the city. Peoria, in a lot of ways, used to have a bustling downtown. In the past 10 years, I remember going to Sully's. This is before your time, but there was a bar downtown called Sully's, and the downtown strip was just like the place to be if you wanted to go out.
Interesting.
And that has been shut down many years ago. It just seems like downtown is a bit sluggish.
A bit, yeah.
And there's a lot of professional services like the courthouse, like banks. You've got to feel some kind of weight with the company you work for of like somewhat revitalizing downtown. Saffron Social is right next door to you.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I have a lot of hope in downtown. I want Peoria to succeed so bad. And so there's got to be some weight there with supporting entrepreneurs to try to kick out businesses or to introduce businesses to the area that succeed in that part of town.
Yeah. Great question. Great challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the companies that I'm going to support are what we call venture backable, not always geared towards downtown development.
Sure.
So one thing to caveat there, but going back to the point of downtown development, it's got to be walkable. Parking is a major issue downtown. That's something that we do need to address. Personally, I think the meters need to go. Half of them don't work anyway, so
or they don't enforce them.
Oh, they don't enforce them.
Yeah,
just rip them out.
Yeah,
make parking more accessible, better lighting. It has to be walkable though, and so you have to have things to meander in and out of if you want to go downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants, boutiques, experiences.
Yeah.
It can't all be corporations, which is sort of the antithesis of what I do, right? So I'm like leaning into venture capital and corporate world, but a downtown has to be living, thriving, and it has to be almost like a living being. It can't just be giant building after giant building that has no welcoming presence.
Right.
When we look at major downtowns that are doing a great job. What are the things they have in common? Beautiful, right? There's no trash.
Mhm.
There's greenery. There's living things. There is pride in the city that could be in the form of, art, murals, that could be beautiful shop space, or art in general, sculpture.
Agreed.
But there has to be an element of like family friendliness to it as well.
Sure.
So something I've seen done in major downtowns that I would love to see implemented here is something along the lines of a First Friday, where you close the streets
It's
down.
a great idea.
And you make it a walkable, enjoyable feature where storefronts are open past business hours. Maybe, I'll pick on Rambler for a second. That's a great store downtown. What if they were open in the evenings and they had old-fashioned cocktails while you shopped for First Friday?
I love that setup, that store.
You would be down there so fast.
I approached that. It's so funny you bring up that store. I approached that guy when I first started, and I was like, bro, I just love how you decorate. Because it's a man, right?
It's very Americana.
And not to hit on us men, but we were generally not as aesthetically like aimed as women are. And so, but he designed that whole store and the feel. It's so cool.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I would love to go out to do something in that space.
Have more of an experience.
Maybe a Zion Coffee Rambler connection there where you could bring your coffee over and sit down and enjoy that place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love seeing what is happening in the warehouse district.
Same.
I think that's the right direction. I'm curious if downtown will adapt more of that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I think that we've got a long way to go, but we've got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And I think from a city Peoria perspective, and I'll have some politicians on here, we need to cast a vision. Cast a vision for the city of Peoria. This is who we are. I feel like we've lost our identity a bit since Caterpillar left. And it's been kind of like I said, we've all scattered to different places and everybody's just trying to make it work. We have to have a common vision that says this is what Peoria is made of.
Yeah.
And I hope to bring shed some kind of light through this podcast of saying there are cool things happening. You just maybe not heard about them, but we can do this. But from a citywide perspective, maybe it's a city planner, maybe it's the mayor, maybe it's someone else, but we need to cast a vision for Peoria for the future.
Big time.
Yeah. It's not just all shootings and bad stuff.
Correct.
It's on the news.
Correct. It's not another restaurant closing.
There you go.
Or another restaurant opening or your local high school athlete, right? Like, I think that's 90% of our news coverage in town.
Agreed.
Which, side note, I'm going to gripe for a second.
Bring the gripe.
We've had startups in the last 3 months that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. How come we can't get any news coverage on that? Nothing, right? It's crickets. Given I know being a journalist is a very tough job. There's a lot of hot tips coming in. But man, that's good news to share.
That is good news.
We should talk about it,
Yeah.
right? So September of 2024, we had $1.2 million raised cumulatively from all the startups that we've worked with, which in this fundraising climate, hell of a job.
Difficult.
It is so hard right now. So hard right now. So 1.2 September 2024, we closed out 2024, officially crossing $2 million.
Congratulations.
So huge efforts.
Yeah.
And just thinking that we've been able to do that in just a few short years, it's really
A lot of
motivating.
progress.
Yeah.
Going back to your First Friday idea, not to Bloomington Normal does that. So I live in Normal now, and the city does a First Friday. I think it's a First Tuesday or something. But there are people in droves that come out to support these shops, and there's a main through line of a bunch of small shops like you described. And there's music playing, there's things happening. Everybody's got their doors open. We are meeting business owners about what they do. It's incredible. I went to an art installment in an art gallery there, and it was so fun. I talked to the artist, and it was amazing. So I agree with you. But there's got to be some kind of pride put back into local people, as opposed to just buying products on Amazon and calling it a day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I do as well, but
everyone's guilty.
Sure,
right?
But we have to get to who are we supporting and why are we supporting it?
I think also I'm gonna go on another gripe here with Amazon.
I love it.
We think of Amazon as convenience. What is actually more convenient is being able to go into a store in your community and get it instantly, whatever that thing is. So when we start leaning so hard into Amazon as instant convenience because it's brought to you, in reality, you had to wait 24, 48 hours for that item, maybe longer, versus just get over your laziness.
Go pick it up.
And just go pick it up. So I'll get off my soapbox with Amazon.
No, I just heard a stat this morning that for every $1 that's spent on Amazon, the local community gets 5 cents. For every $1 that's spent in a local shop, 65 cents gets circulated back into the economy locally.
That's powerful.
It's super powerful. So it's, what is that, 15 or 10, 11, 12, 13 times the revenue back in the local economy that we can spend, and it recirculates and benefits people here. So there's got to be a mindset shift at some point. And the work you're doing right now, it has to feel good because it's creating somewhat of a mindset shift in the people you work with. It's got to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is one of those positions, the type of work I get to do is so fulfilling. Like every day I end going, you know, even if it was hard, even if it was long, even if it was just a really exhausting day, I helped someone.
Yeah.
I always help someone.
Yep.
You know, whether that's getting funding or getting a connection, the work that I get to do is just empowering for so many people. So that was what I was missing from every work experience I've had prior to this. I wanted to know I was making an impact.
Yes. This
gives me that tenfold. So, I mean, I know exactly what I need to be doing. This is it for me.
That's part of the human experience, I think, is just, I think as millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, I'd say to some extent Gen X, we're reforming what is important in life in a large conversation. And working on a computer and typing in data sheets or doing monotonous, everyday busy work just seems like a death sentence to your soul.
Email land, right?
Oh my gosh. Take me out. And so in reframing what life means for people, it's like, does it really matter if you made $1 billion, but you did it by selling your soul? Or is the connections you make to the local community is supporting other people and feeling good every time you come home? Is that worth something? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am so glad you brought that up. Working in venture capital, I think often has such a negative light on it, right? We see a lot of people that have billions of dollars that are not the most philanthropic as well. I think both things can exist, and I think they should start existing more, meaning you can be thriving and successful in venture capital, and you can be philanthropic as well. And something else that sort of correlates in that frame is like where and how the funding gets distributed and who gets it. So when we're talking about venture capital and we're thinking all investment dollars, right? Women get 3% of all venture capital. And
what's the percentage of entrepreneurs?
That increased, by the way.
Wow.
Yes.
What's the percentage of entrepreneurs that are women versus men?
You know, that's a fair point. It is predominantly male. I don't have an exact breakdown, but that number should still be higher than 3%.
Agreed.
And then even more so when we're looking at people of color, it's even more stark. You know, particularly women founders of color, we're talking a point of a percentage.
Oh, wow.
So it's like you don't even exist in the venture capital space. So that is something that gener8tor is really working on building out is recognizing diversity in these pools.
Yes.
Because there should be funds allocated for female founders. What we know too, success-wise, that when a team has a woman on it in the C-suite, in the leadership position, they outperform by 65% than an all-male team. So it does matter. You know, this isn't some rah-rah diversity angle. And I think that's where a lot of the messaging gets diluted down.
Yeah.
Is that's all we're focused on when we say create like female-led funds, for example. It's not because we're trying to check a diversity box. It's because there just is not funding there for women. So we're trying to provide it.
Women think so much different than men, and I've heard this described in a noodle form. So men's brain think along an ice cube tray. Okay. So we have pockets of information in our brain, and we access each pocket one at a time. A woman's brain is formulated like a bowl of spaghetti, where all thoughts and all emotions are all tied together.
I've never heard this before.
Isn't that interesting?
I love it.
But I think it's very true. Where my wife, I ask her, like, where did I leave the scissors? She'll know like exactly the spot, and I'm like, how do you know that? But that's just something that her everything is like connected. So she might glance at something and then put it in her spaghetti brain.
Totally.
But I already moved on to the next thing, forgot completely about it.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. We just think so differently. So in business, having a female that can spot things before you can, I consult my wife a lot in business decisions because she just thinks on a different level than I do, in different ways than I do. And it's super valuable. So I could see a C-suite with a woman on it would be a competitive advantage.
Totally. And that's really all it's about, is a competitive advantage, right? So you get a different lens to look through a problem. You get a different solution.
Yes.
That's powerful.
It is.
We can't all be saying the same thing over and over again.
Welcome to construction. Yeah. No, I think like high 90s are construction companies run by men. It's just a very male-dominated industry. I think roofers are 98% men.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. And so you're around men a lot. So when a woman shows up to a conference even, it's like, oh, there's a woman here. You know, it's like, it's just an interesting, it's an interesting industry because men do build the world with our, like we do. Like I think men are more responsible for building things. However, having females as part of the process along the way of organization and communication, man, powerful.
Yeah. Perhaps men build the world. I think women give experience to it.
That's good.
So good. We're again with that noodle brain. We think about how is someone going to use this building? What is intrinsically the way that we're going to operate together
or feel?
Correct.
Yeah. This space was designed by Tori Zwanzig, and she did an incredible job.
Yeah.
I could not have thought of this by myself.
Yeah.
And so, but a female, specifically Tori, she did such a good job of like picking up the cues of what I was saying and kind of the tonality and some of the things I brought up, and then mixing that with her own experience. It's like, I don't think a man can do this. At least I don't know any.
Right. Like, and that's the superpower, is when we all start collaborating together.
That's it.
Collaboration is the best.
It is.
I love a brain jam. I mean, when I get these 5 companies together for my cohort and all of us are in the room together, that's electric.
It is.
There's something happening that is so energizing and motivating to be like, what could stop us right now? Nothing. Like that's the best feeling of like, we're all going to raise $1 million in 7 weeks.
It's like a 2 a.m. conversation after a long night out. You're like, bro, we can start a company,
We just do all of it without the alcohol though. Just way too much coffee typically.
That is so true. Okay. So that's fantastic. So how has your life changed as a result of, it seems like you stepped into this in Peoria, like with not really knowing what you were going to do. And now you're here, like looking back since 2021, how has your life changed?
I think every aspect of my life has changed.
Has the thought process, let me go a little deeper. Has the thought process on how you think about your personal life changed because of your business, like acumen?
Yes. Oh, wow. This is a loaded question. So much of what I do is extroverted work. You're in the community. You're engaging not only with startup founders, local investors, corporations, organizations, politicians. You're engaging with a wide slew of people that you have to remember who you're talking to at all times. Sometimes what you're saying is not... I don't want to use the word appropriate, but maybe not. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, like certain types of conversations that you're having with certain individuals. So like read the room, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say there. But again, because everything is so extroverted, my downtime is so introverted. I am such a homebody. I'm on 9 to 5. Although oftentimes this is really more of like a 9 to 7 gig. That when I'm off, I love to just disconnect. I love to be home. I love to read. I love well, I did form a book club. That's like my little extroverted activity.
Shout out to the book club.
Yeah, shout out book club. Just the best group of women, right? Like, I just love conversation. I love talking with people. I love learning.
Same.
I just love being exposed to different thoughts, and I love hearing people's stories. Like, I don't have time for critics, though. I don't have time for naysayers and people that are just negative Nancy. So
if I find somebody posting negatively on my in my comments, my Facebook or something, or like bringing up these points, my immediate kind of reaction is just to block them or to unfriend them. And that sounds harsh, but like I control the flow of my content.
Yeah.
And I prefer not to even I prefer not to communicate with those people.
Yeah. Some people shouldn't have
I'm talking to you, whoever
you.
that person is. If you're thinking that, I'm thinking that about you. And that's not, but like I saw somebody they're a very famous person, and they posted on their Facebook page, I reserve the right to control who I speak with.
Yes.
This is my page. And if you don't like my information, then leave.
Yes.
It's like when you put yourself out there in the public, there's kind of like this thing of like, leave the comments open and get just trashed on. No.
Why?
Why do that?
Yeah.
And certain public comments, if a video goes big enough, like there's public interaction, totally fair. But if I see somebody who's just constantly naysaying, I've got no time for you.
Yeah.
In the famous words of that one person on the news, ain't nobody got time for that.
And that is so true. And not everyone should have access to your energy.
No.
Not everyone should have access to just give you feedback that's unwarranted,
Why?
quite frankly.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
I don't come to your job.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm not asking you and I wouldn't get advice from you anyways, I wouldn't want it.
That's it.
I'll get that advice from someone I like and I trust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it from everyone, and that's okay.
Something I picked up, going back to the previous point you made about the kind of knowing your audience, how you speak around who you are. I've picked up a lot from lawyers, and I know a couple lawyers personally, and we have conversations and stuff, but how they communicate is I'll say it's in periods. So like when you write a sentence, I'm like an explanation. I'm an exclamation guy. I'm like, yay, Danielle, you're coming to the pot, looking forward. Lawyers communicate very much with periods. That's just how they do. And they say what it is and that's it. Because they know that their words can be interpreted many different ways if they're not careful. So lawyers are very careful to communicate exactly what they mean and leave it at that. And that's very powerful from a person who's very expressive. In certain atmosphere, in certain circles, I have to be very careful to be a certain way. And that's not taking away from my personal identity. It's just it's like a diamond. There's different facets to it. So walking into different circles, you have to know and be mindful of who you're speaking with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think something else I would add there too is, and again, I keep throwing it back to like the women lens for a second, but I've always worked in male-dominated industries.
Yeah.
It seems to be a common theme I have for whatever reason. Not all men are open to being challenged by a woman still, and that's okay. It's okay in the fact that we just need to recognize it and know that could change. It doesn't have to be today, but just knowing that there's the possibility of collaboration, that's powerful. It's powerful to know that even if I'm not the person to change your perception, so long as you're just willing to speak with me, maybe some other woman could be that.
Yeah.
So opening the door for someone, I guess, is really what I'm getting at.
Sure.
It can be challenging being a woman in a very male-dominated space.
Yes.
There's a kind of, again, like a startup founder, you hear no a lot, you get discredited, someone else takes your idea. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
But it's my goal is to make it easier to open the door for the woman after me. It may not be me, and it may not. This is a tough community. It's a little old-fashioned. It's a little traditional.
Yeah.
And so it's as much as you want to be a change maker, it may not be you. Yeah.
But I think there are. I agree with you. We are a very old-fashioned community. Peoria is a diverse place. Yeah. And you can find a bunch of different pockets. Quick story about having kind of presence of mind with talking to certain people. I was playing pickleball with a CEO, a very successful person, and I walked on the court This guy's very successful, and we were playing doubles together, and I said something to the effect of, "All right, big cat, let's go." And that's just like that's my personality. But like immediately after saying that, I'm like, am I coming off like a total dunce right now? But that's just how I treat anyone who I'm playing with. I don't know if I were to change my statement, but just, again, I immediately thought to myself, maybe I should check my language a little bit around this person specifically.
It seems very on brand. Roof tiger, solar panther, big cat.
I say big cat all the time. Yes. Yeah.
But to your point, though, like, do I need to change my language because of who this person is? I tend to discredit, and I tend to, what's the word I want to use here? Go back and forth a bit, but
waffle.
Yes, thank you. Words. I should have had more coffee. It's okay to just be totally authentically you.
Yeah.
And you should be. But to how much degree in a room? Maybe that's the distinguishing factor, right? Always be you. Always show up authentic. But if you're normally dialed up at a 10 and the room is reading at the energy level of a 5,
yes,
maybe go down to a 5.
That is so true. And I think in this generation, Danielle, like there was a lot, let's take it back 50, 60 years. It was very like 1950s. I just imagine that period of time to be very formal. You wear a suit. It was very common. Even before that, you saw pictures of people wearing suits all the time. Now everything's very casual, and almost the exact opposite has happened, where it's like, this is just who I am, so accept it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a toxic mindset.
I agree.
Because you need to understand that people will judge you.
Yes.
And there are certain conversations that maybe you could have had you maybe molded a bit to the surroundings that you're in.
Correct.
So I wear tiger pants at conferences, but if I went to a nice gala or fundraiser, I'm going to wear a nice suit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fit in, I'm going to look nice, because that's how I want to represent myself.
Maybe a tiger print tie.
Maybe.
Maybe. Cufflinks.
But I'm not going to wear the tiger headdress,
Correct.
to that thing, right? Where certain circles I would love to.
Correct.
So, but that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. Again, going back to startup founders, I'm going to pick on my tech bros for a second. A lot of them.
You mean the vest wearing Patagonia people?
That, or a lot of the athleisure wear,
Yes.
like super casual.
Yes.
Dress it up a little when you're going to meet
It's
with
like
an
you're
investor.
not Mark Zuckerberg yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay to look like you took a shower when you meet an investor.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
There's a book written by Dale Carnegie way back in the day. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he keys on in the book is remembering people's names, because people's names are one of the only things we own and is deeply personal to us. So remembering people's names, but in the same way, like approaching that person in the way that they would want to be approached. Certain introverts or certain extroverts would react different to how I speak. And so I think as part of an entrepreneur is being adaptable to your surroundings.
Yes.
And when the headphones don't work, you just adapt and you move on.
That's right.
And
That's right. Lean into the power of the pivot.
Lean into it. And it's okay that things didn't work out exactly as how you expected, or maybe you didn't do it's okay. Mm-hmm. What are the good things you took away from it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you can't find one good thing, reframe that negative thing so it can be as positive as it can be, right? This was the biggest failure ever. We lost our funding. We didn't get our pilot to work, whatever it is, right? What's the silver lining if you lose all your funding? You have nothing more to lose. There you go. Right? Like, you can always find a silver lining. There's always something there.
Yeah.
And that's, you do have to meet people where they are, and you have to understand that, especially if you are a more negative leaning person, that's really hard to reframe.
Or even maybe not even negative, but emotionally impacted person. If you take information personally, it can be very difficult to live in the world, I think, for somebody who feels a lot, because the world is harsh.
Yeah, you have to figure out a way to gray rock or just unplug, right?
What's gray rock mean?
Gray rocking is a term I learned in therapy. Big shout out to therapy. It's fun.
Shout out.
No, for real though. I think if you've never tried it, you should. It's great.
Agreed.
Gray rocking is simply not giving power to something that might affect you negatively. So let's say you're my biggest critic and you hate the work that I'm doing. If you throw an insult at me about entrepreneurialism, like anything, right? I can just say, okay, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And that's it. I don't have to engage. I can just acknowledge, give you that sense of power.
Period.
Next.
And that's it. Yeah.
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 That's healthy.
Yeah. There's no question mark. There's no need to follow up with it.
That's right.
It's just simply saying, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Done.
I find our CFO, his name's Nick. He's a financial numbers guy. He runs all of our books and does a lot of transactions and deals with our customers. But he's a very kind of stoic person. When I talk to him, I'm very expressive, as you can tell. When I talk to Nick, it's almost like he sits there listening like this. And I'm like looking for reactions. And I'm like, he just doesn't have one.
Yeah.
And I think he almost does it on purpose in business atmospheres because he's not like that in person, in personal places. But in business, he like turns it off, gray rocks it. And he gives very objective feedback to problems where, okay, this is where we're at and this is what's going to happen and we're not going to die.
I love that. I love that. We need more Nicks in our organization.
Emotional people need that. And which, I think that, but he needs me to push.
Yeah, you need a motivator.
I'm passionate about something, like, let's go.
Yeah.
Typically CFOs and finance people are not great founders.
No,
because
not
they
typically.
think too much about the numbers and not about the marketing or the emotional ploys you have to sit with.
They're often victim to paralysis by analysis.
Say that again.
There is such a thing as overanalyzing and just not doing anything.
That's right. There's 16 different ways that could fail, therefore I won't succeed.
Yes. Yeah. This kind of ties into some of the work I'm doing now, is exploring research and patents through universities that is just sitting there, right? These are, someone took the time to do the research, write the paper, send it off to get patent protected. What are we doing with it? That's my question. And I think that's a lot of people thoughts right now of like, we have something that could, cure a major problem or be a major solution, but it's just sitting on a shelf collecting dust under a patent protection.
Fascinating. How
do we put this into action? How do we commercialize it? And that's something I'm actively addressing right now in my recruiting cycle.
Yeah. That's interesting.
We need to do something with it.
Yeah.
At the very minimum, see if it fails and then move on to the next one.
Yes.
So we can't just let ideas sit and collect dust and do nothing, because then it's truly just an idea. It's about turning something into an action. So to your point with your coworker, you are the action. He might be the idea that's percolating, right? Yeah. But you need both sides of the coin.
You need both.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was listening to something this morning, the difference between winners and losers. Winners take, because both winners and losers have hard times, bad times. They take losses. They have periods of no progress. Winners take bad things that happen to them as fuel to be better, and losers take losses personally and complain about why they didn't. It's very simple, but both have to do with the brain and rewiring that. I had Bob Woolsey on the podcast a couple weeks ago. He's run Jones Brothers Jewelers. The business has been around, I think, since 1929.
Oh, wow.
So almost a century. His mom and him took it over like 30 years ago. And he is huge on gratitude, because gratitude rewires your brain to think about the silver linings of everything. And even though you might not be winning today, what did you learn from it and what can you take to tomorrow?
Sometimes I think that the win is recognizing the lesson. That can be just as powerful as the actual win.
Yes.
What did you take away from that experience?
What did you learn here?
If you didn't take away anything, that's the true loss.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to fire back a question to you.
Yeah.
Do you think losers can become winners?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah, I do too. I think in 2019, I went through a really tough time. I went through a divorce, and it was devastating to me. And this is I've told this story many times. I'll tell it again. When I went on dates to get back on the dating market, the conversation, I was probably 30 or 31, would quickly devolve into the ex conversation. What's your ex like? And what's your life like?
Hard to pivot.
And it would quickly turn into a complaining fest about the exes. And so after enough dates, I'm just like, man, I think that I'm the loser here because this person has power over my life now.
Yeah.
And I've been divorced for a year.
Why give them power?
Well, what's wrong with that? I'm actually the one who needs to change. And so when I realized that, I'm like, and I went to counseling as well. And people who haven't gone to counseling, I think that they might imagine it's something like you lay down on the couch and they're psychoanalyzing you. I went through talk therapy, which is just having a conversation with a counselor.
Someone totally unbiased to your life.
And it's almost like they don't even give you advice.
Right, they're just
kind of
listening.
Just like asking questions.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that changed my life, Danielle, was he said, I want you to imagine yourself at 40 years old, and I was probably 31, 32 at the time. Are you proud of yourself if you're still at the same place at 40 than you are now?
I love that question.
And I was like, no. And he's like, sounds like we got some work to do.
Yeah.
Where are you going to start first? And it's not like he was giving me these great grandiose ideas, but it was reframing my brain to think, Ben, anything is possible, but right now you're stuck in a rut and you've got to just somebody's got to just pull you up out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yes, to your point, when you first go through some of these sessions, you're wondering, am I even getting my money's worth? Because I'm doing 90% of the talking and I've got nothing out of this.
Give me advice.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, tell me what to do, right? But you have to be vulnerable. You have to give your trust to someone in order for them to actually understand what it is you actually are experiencing that's a problem. Because the first, probably 5 to 6 sessions, you're laying out things that really are not the problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything that you can just point to and give an excuse to. But then it's sort of like that Y times 7 theory. Keep digging, and then you figure out what the root is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that unbiased person to point out the obvious to you. You know, maybe you have rose-colored glasses on about a situation and you're going, is it me? Am I the problem?
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing X, Y, and Z. Maybe you just need someone to point out if it looks like, a narcissist and it is a narcissist, maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's someone else.
But also the thought process behind taking things like I think there's a freak out stage in therapy where you think like, oh my gosh, like I have some problems.
Like I'm totally broken.
Like I have some issues.
I need to start over.
And the problem is you go to Google and you type in those issues and you're like, these are unsolvable and you're clinically insane. And it's like, whoa, it's kind of like WMD, what's the WebMD?
Oh, WebMD.
I have a cold, you're going to die.
Yeah. Cancer.
That's therapy in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh, like, will I ever get better? Will I have a healthy relationship? Can I have these things? And it's like, wait a second. Yes. The fact that you're asking these questions is proof enough that you can solve them.
Yes.
Because somebody who might have those problems and never thinks about it, they're the actual ones in the dark.
Or proof enough that if you are asking the questions about how to get better as a human being, you probably are not the problem.
Yes.
I've often heard this phrase that the people that go to therapy are not really the ones that need it. It's the people that are sending them to therapy that need it.
I don't know. I needed some therapy. Howard, he helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
But also just like Danielle, I think I came to a point a couple of years ago where I was like, this life is really short.
Yes.
Far be it from me if I'm going to blame every problem that I have on everyone else.
Totally.
Far be it from me.
Totally.
I think being a Dallas Cowboys fan, the Dallas Cowboys fans, are you a football fan at all?
Kansas City Chiefs over here.
So you're a winning team, yeah.
Hey, I was a fan before they were a winning team.
And totally fair.
My childhood was rough being a fan.
And now you're winning Super Bowls. But the one theme that I can find from Dallas Cowboys fans, they just blame everything but the problems in the organization. It's like, it just gets so tiresome, and I've gotten weary of that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be around people that blame everyone in the world for their problems. It's draining. And so now, trust me, I have my sessions where I'm just airing it out. But when you're around people who take their life seriously and want to improve, it improves your life.
Absolutely. Energy is contagious.
It is.
So start surrounding yourself with people that are uplifting and motivating. Again, not critical, not in a negative way,
Yeah.
but critical in, I really want to help you. Will you take this advice? Will
Yes.
you be receptive? If you're not in a state of being receptive, it might be beneficial for you to pull back for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay. Hit
Or if
time
you're
out.
not positive and you're not constructive and you're not bringing things to the table that are solutions, if you're always
Correct.
naysaying and you find yourself getting that speech pattern, be wise. Just shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I tell it to myself sometimes.
Yeah. And
Stop
again,
talking.
maybe it's good to pull back for a second. If you recognize that that's you, it's okay to sit in some solitude for a bit.
I just heard a podcast about there's power in the pause. Have you heard that?
Love that.
And back to lawyer speak, like lawyers know there's power in the pause and they just don't say anything for 5 seconds. That can feel like an eternity if you're in a conversation with somebody.
Let someone open up, right?
That's it. And then they just keep going.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Young people, we have the access to millions, billions of hours of data and information. And I think we're in a time of information discovery. Just like, what's the human brain capable of? And it's a beautiful thing, but it's also like, I think people can watch videos, hours and hours of content, and then not do anything about it. It drives me batty. It does. I'm just like, okay, so you know all of these things and you're still at the same place you were a year ago. What are you doing?
It's that know-it-all expert that can't prove anything for themselves, right?
Danielle, I just had a conversation with a roofer. He called me on Monday and he goes, dude, I see your content online. He's like, your marketing. He's like, he's like, you're doing it, man. And I was like, hey, can I tell you something? Like, I'm not special.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing it and then just doing it again and then refining how I'm doing it. And he goes, I just want to do it. And I said, okay, first step is just taking one step forward. So you owe me $100 if you don't produce a piece of content for a week. So I sent him literally an Apple request and I said, you're going to pay me $100 after a week if you don't produce anything. Go. Hopefully I apply some kind of pressure to you.
Absolutely.
Because you just got to do it. And then guess what? People can actually, I don't know, catch on to your content from there and then be a customer or something, but something good will come from it.
Yeah. And that first piece of content is the hardest.
Always.
Right? It's putting yourself out there to be judged and have the trolls flood your comment section. But do it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Do you know, did you watch any videos this morning? Like before you came in here or like podcasts or anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you a TikTok fan, YouTube?
I'm a big TikTok fan.
We need to become friends. I love TikTok.
I love TikTok. I think something changed in the last few days.
I think so too.
So do with that what you will.
Yes. We'll see. There's a bunch of shenanigans going on. But my point is can you even remember the videos that you watched this morning? You can probably remember maybe concepts of it. But my point is that you forget almost as quickly as you watch it.
Yes.
And when we put ourselves on camera, we think the world's going to sit there showing their wives and friends at night what you're doing. It's just not true.
Have you ever caught yourself on a video and you're like, this is taking too long. And it's like 10 seconds in.
It needs to be faster.
Our attention spans have totally died.
I just saw I'll try to give it justice. I saw a really funny TikTok the other day and I think it'll kick out of it. Where this guy's like, imagine him in a hoodie, like slouched over on a couch, like eating popcorn. And he's talking to ChatGPT and he's filming the videos himself. So like ChatGPT is a person.
Okay.
And ChatGPT's like, hi, how can I help you, sir? And he's like, need ping pong paddle recommendations from 2019. And it starts spitting out information. Summarize it faster, summarize it more. And he's just like, talking to himself, like dumb it down to the dumbest, like possible information that I can receive.
Yes.
As fast as possible.
Yes. That's where we're headed, sadly, right? So to that point, I think I like to try to pick activities that challenge that attention span. Again, 5-minute storytelling pitch is what I tell founders. And can you get it even less? Can you get it to 4 minutes, 3 minutes? But then how do you pivot away from that quick drive, short content type of, how do you stimulate your brain to focus on something for more than 30 minutes?
So true.
That is so difficult now. That's why I love reading. I have set a daily goal, 30 minutes, no matter what.
30 minutes probably felt like an eternity when you first started that.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't have time for this.
No, 30 minutes.
30 whole minutes. And then you start breaking that down. Does that mean I don't have time for a 30-minute walk, a workout?
Good point.
To catch up with my husband after work?
Yeah.
30 minutes is nothing.
Yes.
We can all have 30 minutes, but how many hours did you just spend scrolling TikTok?
Facts.
Like, ugh,
yeah.
cringe.
I don't even want to look at my watch history. I don't even want to look at the time spent. I don't want to do it. I don't do it. Probably because I'm too scared to know the data.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, we can also be trapped into thinking, Alex Hormozi. Do you know Alex Hormozi?
Sounds familiar.
You should follow him.
Okay.
Fantastic entrepreneur. He's a VC himself.
Oh, wait. Is he in a CPG space with like workout
powders?
Or
he does a lot of stuff. He's a huge guy, but he's like, I think he's younger than I am, 33 years old. He's probably worth $100 million. Started a bunch of companies, but now he buys a bunch of companies. He's very wise beyond his years. But he says we've been lulled into the trap of thinking that doing something on your phone is actual work toward your business, and it's not.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. Very much like email land where I exist for most of my work, right?
Send 3 emails, feel accomplished for the day.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself, what's the point of sending this email? Am I actually accomplishing anything with this, or is this just to keep the conversation moving?
Yeah.
If that's
feel
the
like
end,
I'm working.
Yeah, if that's the end goal, scratch it. If I'm emailing someone, it's what's the point of this email?
Yeah.
What are the next steps? Am I introducing them to someone? Am I asking for a connection?
Mm-hmm.
Am I affirming that, yes, we are meeting at this time and this date? What are we accomplishing here?
Yes.
Because if it's just an endless flow of conversation that we're not having, but we're just having via email, that
is the moving needle.
That kills me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like my email short and sweet.
Seriously. If somebody types, even if I scroll down and see there's like paragraphs, I'm like, most of the time, if it's legal, I forward it to Nick and say, just let me know the summary.
Yeah.
I told this to my wife last night. When like long things have to be read, I prefer to send them to her and have her almost read them to me.
Like highlight, like what's the point that I need?
Tell me what I need to think. But like reading them myself, it's like, oh my gosh. Like,
now here's a good hack.
Yeah.
Summarize that whole email, throw it into ChatGPT and say, give me the bullet points. And then maybe that can help you too.
Google just came out with Gemini for Gmail.
Yeah.
We use Gmail Suite for our business, and they just put Gemini into the G Suite. So now I can click a button and it summarizes the email.
Okay, I need to get on this. Yeah. Perfect.
I saw it yesterday. I'm like, this is actually really handy. Google Docs, same thing.
Love
you
it.
can summarize it within a paragraph. I'm like, this is brilliant.
I love the G Suite.
Yeah,
by the way, I'm not a Microsoft fan. Shouldn't say that.
Don't get me started on Bill Gates.
Yeah. Big partners there.
Yay, Microsoft. Yeah. Anyway, well, that's good. So I think the same thing, Danielle, with these conversations is it's a long form, formatted conversation where I'm learning a lot, but I'm also thinking a lot. And I'm trying to just organize my brain and think about what you're saying as much as you're saying it, I'm trying to think about it, which is a great practice to have where I'm away from my phone. Yeah. I'll come back to 50 notifications in a minute.
That's okay.
But like, this is the most important thing in the world, and just stop for 2 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this isn't just light conversation that we're having. Anytime I'm talking venture capital with someone, I feel that I have to distill it down. This is very much a market too, where venture capital is kind of a foreign concept. And I will say, even before I started with gener8tor, I didn't really know what the heck venture capital was. I knew entrepreneurship. Because my dad is one. I've always seemed to work for someone who had another business starting the next day or 3 other offshoots. I've always been exposed to it, and I love it. I like the variety. I can't do the same thing day in and day out. Schedule, no.
Same.
Routine, no. But when we're talking venture capital, it's sort of a foreign concept to a lot of people. You know, when you say start a business, where do you get funding? Yeah. It always goes to loans, credit cards,
or family.
Yeah. Family is kind of that gateway to venture capital a bit. We call that the friends and family seed round.
Yes.
Angel round could be another term for it.
Sure.
But we don't typically think of I'm going to start this business and I'm going to go to a VC group and say,
Yeah.
do you think my business is worth $500,000 for X% of equity?
Yes.
If you do, let's work together. That is kind of a scary concept for a lot of people to
Yes.
get a lot of money up front. And what we're trying to do with this program is really understand that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Money is emotional and it shouldn't be.
Mm.
It's just numbers. But money carries a lot of emotion because of our own backstory with it.
Yes.
And so when you start to view money as a tool and
Mm-hmm.
not something emotionally charged, that's when it becomes really powerful.
That's so good. Also, Danielle, like, I talk about this a lot because it's important to me. I don't care if I die with $1 billion. Can I just say that out loud? I
Please.
don't care.
Yeah.
Sure, I can leave my kids and have, but guys, why are we setting up our lives to make as much money as possible? Why is that the goal?
Yeah.
Why has the tool become the goal?
Yes. It shouldn't be.
And sure, you can have better vacations and live in a nice house. Okay, yeah. Money is important up to a certain extent. I'm not downplaying the importance. Trust me, I've been broke many times.
Money does solve a lot of problems.
It solves a lot of problems that are very important. However, once you get to a certain level of, and I don't even think it's that high, once you get to a livable standard where you can handle your bills, it should be the only thing we talk about.
Yes.
And it bothers me that our culture is turning into how much is your top line revenue, your profits. And so in my experience with VCs, that tends to be the EBITDA and the cash flow and the balance sheet tends to be what they look at first. I get it. You have to have a financially viable business to be purchased. However, my grandpa was a chiropractor for 50 years, graduated, went to World War II, fought in literally France, and then came home, used the GI Bill to be a chiropractor, raised 8 children. But more importantly, he adjusted the entire community. His job was
Physically
taking care,
adjusted.
yes, taking care of people. And guess what? He bought his groceries from the person that he adjusted. He used the eye doctor that was the person so it created this a community of people helping each other thrive and succeed. I love that concept.
Yeah.
That I'm roofing people that I care for. And then guess what? If I need their services, I use them. It's a beautiful transactional thing where I'm not just calling 1-800-ROOF or 1-800 whoever to solve my problems. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how you build strong communities is through using those interpersonal connections.
Bingo.
It doesn't mean you have to be friends with everyone.
No.
Right. But it does mean that you're showing up and you're supporting your community as a whole. Like that's the larger grand scale here. So when you order that thing on Amazon that's going to look really cute in your living room, did you even think to check out a local boutique?
Yeah.
You know, that's more impactful.
Yes.
Or supporting that person who finally has the bravery to launch their brand new business.
That's right.
And they had that open party and no one showed up.
Yes.
How crushing is that?
Shout out to my shirt today, Reverence Coffee. These are my friends. Chris Olson used to work for us and then started his own coffee shop. And they had posted on social a couple of days ago that they were going through like the wintertime blues and it's like really challenging. And I can identify with that. My first year was like that as well. And so I just want to support them in the same way. You know, I filmed some content for them as well. I'm going to go in. I'm coming in this afternoon. I'm buying and I'm tipping large. But yeah, we need that.
Absolutely.
Do we not?
And the coffee is delicious.
Have you been there?
Yes, I have.
It's an incredible place.
It's a cute little ambiance inside too.
They did a great
really
job.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I agree with you though, that the local community and I guess being conscious of what you're purchasing, who you're purchasing it from. Pickleball paddles, unfortunately, are not produced in Peoria. I'm a huge pickleball fan. Yeah. But I like to buy from companies that are like small mom and pop shops that produced a privately owned company that just started producing these things. I like that.
Well, it comes with a story too, right? You
Yes.
know, if let's say that we do get a pickleball paddle manufacturer in Peoria, that's a tongue twister. Pickleball, Peoria, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it comes with a story of like, hey, I knew this person. I met them. They have a shop downtown.
Yes.
I go there. That's where this thing came from.
Running Central.
Yeah.
They don't produce the shoes, but it's like, have you been there before?
I have, yes.
It's amazing.
Excellent.
Their how large it is and how many shoes and their experience with how to sell you shoes. I was like, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. And, it's, even though I am much more in the venture capital investment worthy type of businesses, I
Yes.
love a small business at the end of the day
Same.
too.
Same.
When I say I grew up with my dad being an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
he had a small business. And then he scaled that business. He produced cabinetry.
Okay.
And then he started producing elevator panels for a company called ThyssenKrupp Access,
Okay.
which
I've heard of that, haven't I?
most people have.
I was going to say ThyssenKrupp is like huge, isn't it?
Yeah. So pretty much any hotel around the world, if you look in the panels, most of them are ThyssenKrupp. So probably at some point, those panels came out of his wood shop in Missouri.
Wild.
So, but he started small. He started out of our garage when I was 2 and my brother was 1, and worked a lot of long nights, long days.
Yes.
My mom definitely supported us in all facets of not just the business, but the family.
Yeah.
Making sure he had a meal to eat at the end of, a 15-hour workday. Someone has to be there to provide that.
So true.
So that's motivating, seeing someone work so hard and then hit that moment of success. My dad was able to sell his business in his 30s and retire.
Wow.
9 months later, he's going crazy. He's like, I cannot be retired. This is way too early. And then started, a slew of other businesses since. But it's just support your local, support your small businesses, but also support your startup communities. That's too. Right. Because
that
they're
goes
working on is crazy.
To the exact point that I'm saying, Danielle, is that what is success?
It's let's define it.
But so in the past 20 years, we've just drilled down on what is your net worth and not what you, what if I went into a drug that was killing people, but I made billions off of it? Are you successful? Are you?
I mean, I'm going to say no here.
Yeah, right. So let's reframe it.
Yeah.
Let's reframe success as doing something that you feel like you're making an impact in your local community, or I know not all companies are local, but are you making an impact that's positive for humankind? And are you enjoying what you're doing? Do you feel like you're growing as a human being and making a living while you're doing it?
So a few years ago, I got to go through the Patterson life path process. Have you heard of this?
No.
So essentially you spend 2 to 3 days with someone and they help plot and plan all the events of your life that you've gone through. And it formulates sort of the direction of where you should be headed. What do you need to start, stop, and change in your life? Mm-hmm. And it's not so much of a linear process of here's where you started and here's where you are, but it takes more of this Eastern approach of circling your life from all angles. And so through that process, I learned, and my company was the one who sponsored this. So I should thank them for the opportunity to go through this process. The outcome was I was not in the right position. Mm-hmm. I was not doing work that was fulfilling for me. And I came away with the understanding that I have to do good, I have to be good, and I have to feel good at the end of the day. Mm. And that was just my motto: do good, be good, and feel good. And if something isn't in alignment, thanks. That's the fourth one.
Yeah, that's right.
If something's not in alignment with that, then why am I doing it? Mm-hmm. What's the purpose? If I don't feel good with the work that I'm generating, why am I doing the work? If I'm not being a good servant of community and helping someone, what action can I change so that I can be doing that?
Yeah.
And so it was a great framework of just
that's amazing.
Looking at my life and defining my own success.
Yes. I said look good, like jokingly, but
hey, I'll take the compliment.
Well, no, I'm saying from a like perspective of like self-worth. We've all been to, maybe you get your hair, I don't know, women with her hair and stuff, but when I get a haircut and I have a nicely trimmed beard and I smell good and I'm dressed in the morning, I feel like I can tackle the day.
Well, there's pride in showing up for yourself first.
There is. Showing up for yourself and looking how you want to present yourself to the public. And It's part of it, of like being proud of who you're becoming externally and internally, and then bringing that to the people around you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not just physically, how do you look?
Of course.
But how do you come across to someone else? Are you known as a selfish, entitled individual?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's not a good look, right? But if you're someone who seeks to help others, really be resourceful, be uplifting for someone going through a hard time, I think that's a good look.
Agreed.
Personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point to end on, because I think you have a meeting here in about 10 minutes.
Oh, good.
Too late. Yes. We can get lost in conversation.
Perfect.
It's been tremendous having you on, Danielle.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of wisdom. I'm going to watch this back and take some nuggets for it that I'll bring up in future podcasts. I will.
Perfect. Perfect. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. Tiger Den Podcast. Danielle, thanks for coming on. Yeah.
My pleasure.